Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode. And my guest this week is James Taylor. And James is the co founder of a new company called ReThink Demand and has a very strong track record in the sales arena. And I'm going to ask him a load of questions around that. Most importantly, focusing on his top 5 tips for sales, because I know there's a large number of us out there who find sales very, very difficult. In fact, JT has helped and is helping me with certain angles of my business around sales. And the things that you just seem to find incredibly easy, most people really find quite challenging. So when I say that, your top 5 tips for sales, he's had no prep for this, by the way. What's the first thing that comes to mind? What would be your first number 1 tip?
Well, just to buy me some time while I think about that, thank you for inviting me into your lair of Norwich City memorabilia and Sheffield United supporting golfers. That's put me on edge, to say the least.
JT is a Sheffield Wednesday supporter and season ticket holder, so having Matt Fitzpatrick that you can't see out of shot over there winning his latest major, where he's also the amateur champion, I imagine is only motivating you.
Yes, no, it really, really is.
But also being in front of our great centenary shirt signed by all the players of that season, I imagine means a lot.
No, it does. I mean, it's okay because at least I've got the knowledge that we're a bigger club, so it's fine. So, top 5 sales tips, and it's really unusual sort of being asked something like this because sales has been something that I've done literally all of my life, but still, I wouldn't necessarily call myself like a successful salesperson because you just, I don't know, it's really, if you're a salesperson and you're trapped in that sales life, you're only as good as your last quarter. You're only as good as your last sale and last conversation that you had. So track records can come and go. So it's like, I guess you look at the things that made you work in a period of time. So a quarter that was strong or a 6-month period that was strong. What were the things that you were doing that enabled you to perform well? Mm-hmm. So if I look at myself as a salesperson, it's pretty much, I've not had a tremendous amount of sales training because I think sometimes it can be too structured sometimes, and it can take away the polish and take away the authenticity of an individual. I think it has a role, and there's some good options out there. It has a role, but it's about being an individual. So for me, number 1 is putting my personality into every conversation I have. And that doesn't mean like you've got to try and be quirky or different or funny. I look at myself as a relationship builder. If I look at some of the business that I've built over the last, well, let's say 18 years, certainly. So, as you say, been running my own business since March with a business partner of mine. But prior to that, in an agency for 18, 19 years, helping build that up with under great leadership, with a good, strong leadership team around us, where we're allowed to focus on the things that we were good at. So one of those for me was, I was given a number. The challenge for me was to go and get that number how I saw fit. So I had that freedom, and that's where I developed the relationship building skills. That's where I focused on what I was good at. So you're almost trying to get into a conversation where you're not actually trying to sell anything. You're going in there and you are understanding the needs of the person that you're talking to. You're opening a conversation, and ultimately what you're trying to do is sell yourself. So my approach was always, if I can get them to buy me, if I can get them to buy into me, what I'm doing is I'm then giving them access to this whole portfolio of products that we can then offer, which will then help them hit their targets, hit their objectives, and expand their own sort of business. So that would be, if I look at some of the relationships that I've had, very high-level people in very, very large tech organizations, I would literally just go in and have a conversation. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't go in with a pitch deck. So I tend not to if I'm in a pitching environment, I tend to stay away from having a deck, and just try and open that conversation and structure it so that I can understand what their objectives are, where they're trying to get to, what's working well, what are they doing to kind of get there out of that, what's working well, what's not working well, why do they think it's not working well, and then look at the gaps. And that's where that conversation starts. I think sometimes sales gets a really bad name. It's very easy to do it badly, and a lot of the perceptions that people have around sales is that the sales element that's been done badly, which is the repeated call, the repeated narrative of a script, they're just the very, very direct questions where no one's getting to know you, no one's trying to understand you, and all they're trying to do is pitch what they've got. For me, it's more about switching the conversation the other way. So understand what that person's trying to achieve, understand what their challenges are, because there could be 90% of what I could offer is irrelevant. So there's no point in me just going in and pitching. I need to find out what part of the suite of offerings that we've got is relevant, and then we can go in and find a match to fix the challenges they're having.
Okay. So what you're saying really is the priority isn't about being eager with what you have. It's about getting to know that individual, feel their pain. I know a sales trainer, Matt Sykes from Sales Cadence, he would advocate that very, very strongly. But also potentially having quite a bit of patience, I would suggest. And I think the really important thing here that I take as well is some people will be listening to say, oh, that's all very well, but I've got these targets, I've got these things to sell. Well, then that I believe personally, and I'm interested in your views on this, reflects quite poorly on your company and your leadership team and your employers, because if they're putting pressure on you, then actually they're probably putting their business opportunity at risk because they're sending you out there to be a pest. And that's not helpful. So I would certainly be imploring any business leaders listening to this who put very tough requirements on their people, just think again, because I know you're in a specific sector, but there's some of the contracts that you've won, they've taken many, many months, even maybe years in certain times, but they've been very, very rewarding, haven't they? And you probably wouldn't have had that if you went in. I'm thinking of a few individuals that you've worked with specifically. If you'd have gone in and just told them what you can do and tried to sell them a package, they would have just probably put the phone down on you, I'd imagine.
Yeah, look, I think I agree with a large part of that. I think as a salesperson, a target is something that's probably necessary. But if I think about my own experience, it's how that target is built, the intelligence behind it, rather than just being an arbitrary number.
Yeah.
It's looking at the market. So it's how where that number's come from, the process behind it, and then the flexibility that you've got to go and achieve that number. So if I talk about my agency experience and the leader that I was working for, so the owner of the business who you've met was Mirza. It helped me that he was a very, very strong salesperson and still is a very strong salesperson, but in a very non-salesy way as well. You know, lots of knowledge, so that automatically gets people on side, lots of thought behind the processes, so that again buys that relationship. So for me, I'd have a target given at the start of the year, and it was pretty hefty target, pretty chunky target, and it would grow year on year, but not again some arbitrary finger in the air. Well, let's just add 15%, let's add 20%. It was around looking at what the market's doing and the type of clients that I was going after, and then I would give them the freedom to go and achieve that number how I saw fit, with the confidence behind me. Now, not everyone's in the position to do that. You know, sales is a numbers game, not just from a target perspective, but then it's always broken down as to hit this number, you need to do X number of conversations, X number of meetings, whatever it may be. Most salespeople live in that vibe of I've got to break it down to achieve that number. Not everyone has the luxury of having a direct leader who gives you that level of autonomy and gives you that confidence to go and structure how you want to go about stuff. But my argument back from that to most salespeople is there's always an element of control with your number. There's always an element of being able to educate the business back around what it is you're trying to do. Why is that number not necessarily working? Why are you not converting? It could be the message, it could be the product, it could be the lack of background, the lack of understanding. That will affect the confidence that you have when you're delivering that pitch or having that conversation. But I think it's about telling a story as much as it is hitting a number. And if we break it down into some of the programs that we used to run, where effectively we're trying to sell product on behalf of our clients, the story became more important, or certainly as important as the number, to the point where we were being able to educate them on the targets that they were setting as a business. We would be able to give them insight into that marketplace, so that they could then set more realistic targets because we were telling them what the audience was saying.
Yeah.
So I think a target is important. The pressure on the target, I think, is a different thing, because you can't say to somebody, right, Oliver, there's £1 million on your head.
Yeah.
And then a week later go, what have you done about that £1 million? A month later, you're behind on that £1 million. Where are you? What are you doing? It's about empowering that person in that position to be able to break that number down, understand how they're going to go about achieving that number, but also giving them the confidence to go and do that, and giving them the understanding of the market, who they're talking to, making sure they've got the right product knowledge, but also understanding them as a salesperson, because every salesperson is different. For me, it's about relationship building, but also product knowledge. So you go back in the day where most sales training would hammer about features and benefits all the time. List the features, list the benefits. Just get on the phone, call up, don't let them breathe, hammer them straight away. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is the product I'm selling. These are the features. These are the benefits. Okay, that's what I would call an ineffective sale. That is something that I would shy away from. That's not natural for me. It is natural for some people, but that's not natural for me. So you need to understand what type of salesperson that you've got, because again, sales it's a dirty word. Let's face facts. No one really wants to do it, but it is, for me, it's one of the most misunderstood skills that are out there. I think to be a good salesperson, you have so many intrinsic skills that enable you to do that successfully, and that it's more often than not, it's misunderstood. It's not coached effectively. It's not identified, and it's not built on within the business.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So far, the second tip there really sounds to me like having clear targets and clear parameters, not these arbitrary figures. So if you're a salesperson and you're struggling with your target, you need pushback, is what I'm hearing, and you want evidence as to why that is the target. If you're the employer, you need to not just be making it up and finger in the air, pointing it. You need to back it with evidence to give them the confidence to do it. Then the third tip that I'm hearing again is, if you're the individual, know yourself and know what works for you. Don't necessarily, because a lot of people who are sales specialists are very competitive, and therefore might look to copy other people's traits and techniques. But you'll have your own skill set, your own talents, obviously something very close to my heart. And equally, if you're an employer, I had this conversation in lots of fields, so it's not just unique to sales, and you've got, say, 10 people all doing the same job. Please don't think they're all going to do it in the same way. But you may well be setting a job description, role description, scripts, whatever it might be, for the same for every single person. Well, I promise you, all 10 people will not be performing at the same levels under that. So there's 3 already that I'm hearing there.
Yep.
So what would be your last 2?
I think really one of the keys is understanding how people buy, and therefore the other side of that coin is understanding how you like to be sold to as an individual, because we'll get really mardy, and that's a northern word, so I probably better translate that. We all get really tetchy and upset if we get telemarketed to. Yet I've seen, I've experienced none of the businesses that I worked for, but I've seen other businesses just try and do the same thing, and they're not thinking about how does that make me feel. Like if you walk into a shop and you're just wandering around looking at a t-shirt or something, and then the salesperson's right in your face, how can I help you, and doesn't leave you alone. Like most people don't enjoy that experience. So I appreciate it's difficult. I appreciate that a lot of the time it's a numbers game, but I think what you've got to try and do where possible is understand how you would like to be sold to in that environment, and also understand how people buy. And that comes back to the intelligence of when those calls are made, or what you're trying to achieve on a call. So I'm talking about calls because obviously a lot of salespeople will be on the phone trying to generate meetings or have conversations. So what's realistic? What's that buying cycle look like? Is someone going to commit to a meeting straight away when they've never heard of you? Is someone going to commit to going to an event again when their relationship with you isn't as good as you want it to be at that stage? Because again, you're educating them. So it's a step-by-step process. I think you have to have the mentality of people are not necessarily going to buy on the first phone call. It's going to take some time to get to that point, so that the objective of the first call should be to get them to buy into you. Say, okay, yeah, I want to hear from this person. I want more information. And that's success. That's what people need to understand. That's success. If you as a salesperson have gone into somebody from scratch and got them to say, yes, I want to hear more, I want to engage further, that's a massive tick in the box. That's you're on the road to building a relationship and potentially developing a sale. So you have to break it down into a step-by-step process. So I think a long way of answering that for number 4 is understand the buying process, understand how people buy, and understand how you like to be sold to, and then break it down into a realistic journey. If you go into it with the mentality that if I don't make a sale, if I don't get a meeting off this call, then it's failure. Then as a salesperson, you're going to just be constantly beating yourself up, because actually there's successes along the way within the big element of success, which is the meeting or the sale or whatever the ultimate goal is. Again, if I think about some of the relationships that I've got, that I had in the previous business, there's people that didn't buy from me for like the first 18 months. I'm thinking of one client in particular that I've been working with now. Well, I was working with before I left. I was working with her for 12, 13 years. And she got to sort of very high level in tech organizations and took us with her where she went. But for the first 18 months of engaging her, it wasn't about getting business from her because she wasn't in a position to spend money. It was about making her understand that, okay, we're an organization that would be really good to work with because we've got a great understanding of the market. We can build a rapport. We can help. We're not just there for the money, which would lead me on to the 5th tip in a second. Again, I had the luxury of being in a position where I could do that. I had to make a number. She didn't contribute to that number for the first 18 months, but I had other irons in the fire that did. But ultimately, after sort of 5, 6, 7 years, she almost became a third of the overall number because of the development of that relationship. So I was in a luxury to be able to do that, and I fully understand. There's probably people listening to this thinking, this guy's an idiot, because I haven't got the time. I haven't got the luxury to do that. I need to hit a number now. But my advice to them on that front would be take the success of every single call. Somebody wanting a call back, somebody wanting more information, that's success. Success is not just the number. It's not just getting the goal. It's all the little things that happen along the way, and I think they are often missed, and that can feed the confidence of a salesperson.
Okay, perfect. And I heard you hinting at a 5th one already. So,
yeah, what was that one then?
so far, so we've got the importance of number one was relationship building. You know, when you're going for sales,
Yeah.
relationship building.
I got it.
Then you had number two, which is about effective, real targets, not just ones made up on the back of a fag packet. We then had about knowing the individual, that person knowing themselves well, but also making sure that the teams around them know how they work, because no salesperson is going to be the same. And then the last one that you cut up was the buying process, because often we can just go out there and just try and fling something in front of people, but actually, if you reflected on that, would you buy that? You know, and we all experience it. I mean, on LinkedIn, my inbox is full of people who don't think this through,
Yeah.
and are just immediately not being considered by me for a number of things that actually, perhaps, I've looked at them sometimes and thought, you know, maybe that could be useful, but I'm just not interested in their approach. So, what's your final golden nugget?
I think the final one, and again, I appreciate that this is a luxury in some ways, is don't make it about the number. And what I mean by that is don't make someone feel like you're just there to get cash out of them. That's it's tough. And again, ultimately, we all know what the objective is. Your objective is to make more money. Your objective is to get more sales. But what you don't want to do is make that person feel like all they are is a transaction. And again, that's tough because some of the environments that people are operating in from a sales perspective are really aggressive. You know, the demands on them are really, really high, and I kind of feel for them for the positions that they're in. But also, if I look at it from myself right now, if I look at the business that myself and Mark have started, you kind of, as a startup, almost every potential sale counts. And that's a really stressful, scary environment to be in. What if we didn't have that experience, what we'd probably be looking at doing is just closing anything. And we don't want to do that because that's going to devalue the offering that we've got to the clients that we do want to win. We're making sure that we're kind of chasing the right engagements where we feel we can help the clients the most. So try not to make someone feel like it's just a transaction, try and make it look like it's a win-win. And the way that you look at doing that is, again, it goes back to some of the stuff that you would get in sales training, which is around the source of pain. What's the source of pain that person has? So what's the challenge that they've got? What are they trying to fix? How can you help alleviate it? So you make it look like a win-win. You almost it sounds really cheesy, but you almost want to make that person buy it rather than you sell it. That's the kind of key. That's where I try to get to. And again, I'm talking predominantly from the experience of the last 18 years in the old business, is try and get to the point where you've made something so attractive and compelling that it's almost like they're taking the power to say, I want to buy that. You're not selling it to them.
Awaken the need in them.
Exactly that, yeah.
Oh, no, well, that's perfect. I think that's, you know, I like to keep mine to around 20-25 minute episodes. So I feel that we've got the top 5 things there that I feel people will find valuable. One of the things that I also know JT has a real passion for helping people. I know he's got aspirations of potentially doing some coaching like me and mentoring and so forth. So a genuine offer here is if you want to reach out to JT, he's on LinkedIn, so James Taylor of ReThink Demand. I know he'll chat back. So if you've got questions, he's really happy to help. Gets involved in a lot of stuff in his local community and everything. Even, you know, still goes to Sheffield Wednesday. So, you know, he's a very patient man, a very, very patient man. I can't stress how patient a man.
Yeah, that's definitely helping the community.
He is, yeah, indeed. But also, you know, local football clubs, things like that, you know, you've got involved. So there's a real genuine point. If you've got any questions, by all means, reach out to me. But JT helps me with sales. So if you've got some sales questions or anything you found on here is interesting or you want to challenge and see, you know, your circumstances aren't the same and you want, well, how can I help? I think actually JT would be willing to have a chat with you and talk about it. So Thank you for coming on.
No problem.
I hope as listeners, potentially viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, you've enjoyed it and found it useful. And I'm going to bring JT in for one more episode. So in the not too distant future, you will see him on a different subject matter. But for now, thanks very much for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing or speaking to you on the next one.
Thank you.